Welcome to Lecto. Today we are going to discuss factors that actually affect the developmental process of the child. We will discuss specifically the development of the brain. So let's start. Three most important factors that actually affect the developmental process of the brain. First one is the genetics. If there is an abnormality or if there is a mutation, then it will affect the developmental process of the brain. How? If you see Down syndrome, in Down syndrome you will see the brain of that child will not work properly or will not develop properly as compared to the normal child. So that's the genetic factors also involved in the development of the brain. Next is the biological. If there is a hormonal change and if there is a nutritional deficiency that are actually hinder the developmental process of the child. So biological factors actually involve in the or play an important role in the development of the brain as well. And third one is the psychosocial. In this case, you will see that the mentality level of the child is trying to adjust with his environment. In this case, if the mentality level of the child and the environment is correlate, then it will adjust. Then that child will adjust. But if the environment and the mentality level of the child is not adjusting with his environment, then that will cause the or hinder the developmental process of the child. So if I speak, if there is a child and that child lives in a poor environment, then the development of the brain will not be proper as compared to the child that live in normal environment that supplied the adequate things to that child. So this is the case. Psychosocial factor also affect the development of the brain. So these are basically the three factors: genetics, biological, psychosocial factors. Next thing is how a child can live a healthy life. So most important factors that actually involve in the healthy life of the child is, first one is the hearing. Good hearing or good listening is very much important. And if I speak, I say that if we input positive factor, then we get the positive result. And if we input the negative factor, then we will get the negative result. So this is the basic rule. If there is a good listening, then the output will be the good. And if there is a good vision, then the output will be the good. So this is the basic rule. Positive input, positive output. Negative input, negative output. Secure environment is very much important. If there is a child that live in a secure environment and if there is another child that live in insecure environment, if I speak that if there is a child that live in poverty and if there is a child that live in normal environment, and that child that live in the insecure environment, poverty, that cannot be healthier as compared to the normal child that live in adequate environment. So this secure environment is very much important for the healthy growth or healthy development of the child. Fourth one is the responsive parents. If I speak, responsibility of the parents is very much important. If I say that if there is a mother and that mother do not feed her child properly, then what will happen? Then it will affect the health of the child. If the mother is normal, then that mother should feed her child properly. Otherwise, it will impact the health of her child. So these are basically the four factors that are involved in the health of the child. Next, we will discuss the prenatal factors. Most specifically, that will involve in the development of the brain. So first is the genetics, second is the maternal. Okay. First of all, we will discuss the genetic factor. So if you see, like, if here is the mother and here is the father, IQ level of the mother and IQ level of the father will combine and it will result if there is a son, and that son IQ level will be comes from the mother and the father as well. No doubt there are some IQ level will acquired by the son his own, but the IQ level of the mother and the father contribute in the IQ level of the son as well. So in this case, if there is a genetic abnormalities, like if there is a chromosomal abnormalities, so if you see here, if there is a chromosomal abnormality, then what will happen if I say that Down syndrome? Down syndrome, in which, as you know, that there is 21st chromosome abnormality. Extra chromosome is actually present at the 21st chromosome. So in Down syndrome, you will see that child brain cannot develop properly. So in this case, you will see the intellectual level of the child will decrease in the Down syndrome patient. So this is the case one. And if there is a gene defect, if I speak that there is a defect in the gene, and you will see the here, if you see here, like the phenylketonuria. In the phenylketonuria, actually there is a defect in gene. As we know that the DNA involved in the production of RNA, and RNA ultimately protein. And as you know that the enzymes are also protein. In the phenylketonuria, you will see there is a enzyme deficient because there is a defect in the gene, and it will ultimately there is no enzyme. And that what type of enzyme? Phenylalanine hydroxylase. That enzyme is absent in the phenylketonuria. If the phenylalanine hydroxylase enzyme is absent, then what will happen? A phenylalanine, that is amino acid, will not be broken down into different substances. As a result, the phenylalanine will deposit into the brain, and it will affect the developmental process of the brain. So in that case, you will see in the phenylketonuria, the development of the brain will not be proper. Okay. Next, if you see that the lissencephaly, that is also genetic cause. There is a defect in gene. In the lissencephaly, as you know that in the brain there is a normal convolution folding cerebral cortex. In the lissencephaly, you will see never any see like this is a normal brain, in which you will see the normal convolution. But in the lissencephaly, you will see the brain there is no convolutions or folds in the cerebral cortex. So this is actually, and you can check it out in the X-ray. So in this case, you will see the brain will not work or will not develop properly in that case. This is also the another case. Okay. Next is the maternal. In the maternal, first of all is the nutritional factor. Mother care is very much important for the proper development of the child. So if there is a deficiency in the micronutrients, or you can say macronutrients, then it will affect the developmental process of the child. Micro means different vitamins, iodines, iron, and macro means carbohydrate, different protein. That should be proper. If there is a deficiency in this nutrient, then it will actually affect the birth weight and the child development. Okay. So if there is a poor environment, so actually if I speak that the poor development is equal to poverty. So this is the case. If there is a child that lives in poor environment, poverty, then you will see the poor development of brain of that child. Why? Because in that situation, nutrients will not be proper, and in this case you will see there will be some electrical changes in the brain, and that will ultimately goes to the decrease in the cognitive ability of the child. So this is another case. Next is the drugs and the toxin. If the mother is using different drugs like anti-epileptics and alcohol abuse and the different environmental toxins that actually enter into the mother and ultimately enter into the child, that different factors also involve in the decrease in the developmental process of the child as well. Okay. Next is the disease and the infection. So in the pregnancy you will see the different situations like hypertension, hypothyroidism, malnutrition, because child also require the nutrient. Mother and the child both require the nutrients. So in that situation, nutrient requirement will be enhanced. If you see, like in the normal, if I say that in the pregnancy, you will see hypertension, hypothyroidism, and malnutrition. So these are basically the different situation. Hypertension, like it can also, you can also see in the form of eclampsia and pre-eclampsia. In the pre-eclampsia you will see just the hypertension, but in eclampsia you will see the hypertension along with the seizures as well. Okay. And if you see, like there are different infections, like different acquired infections like HIV, syphilis, cytomegalovirus, different, also these different factors, infections also affect the developmental process of the child. Okay. And if the mother is facing like different oxidants and free radical, oxidant and different free radicals that actually involve, like if there is a free radicals and oxidant, that will cause the chorioamnionitis. What disease? Chorioamnionitis. This is actually the infections of the amniotic fluids and the placenta. In this case, it actually, most importantly, this infection happens when the premature ruptures of the amniotic membrane and release of the amniotic fluid before birth. So this causes the chorioamnionitis. That is, in this case you will see the foul smelling in the amniotic fluid and the different soreness of the uterus in the chorioamniotic fluid, and that will affect the development of the brain. How it will cause the cerebral palsy. Cerebral palsy, most important thing. In this cerebral palsy, you will see the movement will not be proper. In this case, it is actually the motor disability. Child cannot walk or move properly, or balance will not be proper in the cerebral palsy. So this is the thing that actually happen in the chorioamnionitis. So this is all about the prenatal factor that actually affect the prenatal development. So if you have any question, you may ask in the comment section. Thank you.